Let's just start off the top because, we got to hook the people in with some Bryce Harper talk. Bryce Harper will start us off here on the grading, and then we'll get to the rest. I personally, for Bryce Harper, I'll start, Renee, and then Tyler, you guys follow suit here. I'm giving him an A. The only reason it's not an A+ is because his A+ level is slightly better than this. It was the longest, I believe, home run drought of his career this year. Kind of the only negative. He was hurt during the time, but look, he's a Gold Glove finalist at a new position. That counts for a lot. He played through some banged up times and some injuries. That counts a lot. His .285 batting average was very good. His on base, looking back on it, was probably slightly better than I had in my mind at .373. That's an excellent on base for a power hitter like that. Gold Glove, injury, yada, 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 leader. Only reason it's not an A+ is because his A+ is very much on the table for him to still go get. And I think that home run drought cost him a little bit there. And just overall, an A. I have no complaints about Bryce Harper. Professor Washington's got that look in her eye, Tyler.
PSU Iverson is saying for grades, Wheeler gets an A+, Schwartz gets an A, everybody else is an F. Frank is saying Harper is a B, and I'm actually going to go with Frank on my grade as well.
Wow,
I actually gave Bryce Harper a B. This is where I'm starting my grades at. Yes. So here, tough. I actually created, I am a
Frank
professor.
are tough graders.
I am a professor these days, so I wanted to really put on my professor hats a lot more seriously. I had a whole criteria, and it was postseason performance was like 40%, 20% was regular season. I got to find my rubric. Here it is. Progress from 2023 was weighed into this. Like, did you improve from last season? That was 20%.
To the year prior, yeah.
Adjustments in season, 20%. Regular season as a whole,
20% in season.
20%, and 40% for the playoffs, because obviously to me, the playoffs are the most important.
So
and
where
if you're
does he come out to a B?
Because
postseason, he was one of your best.
Nobody was great in the postseason.
But Bryce Harper and Nick Castellanos were the
nobody
best.
outside of the starting pitching is getting good grades for the postseason. I don't like Bryce Harper's postseason performance. Was it better than the others? Yes. Was it good enough? No. And it's also weighted based on who they are. Bryce Harper has a higher bar and expectation. Postseason for Bryce Harper, in his 4 at-bats, he had 1 hit. He had 1 run. He was batting a .250, 400 OBP, .250 slugging, 650 OPS. Was he better than everybody else? Has he got a hit? Sure. Was that great? No. Overall, this season, as you mentioned, did have that home run drought, but was still good, was still productive, gave you good at bats.
He stole game 2 for me. Almost, you could have gotten swept if it's not for Bryce Harper. Anyway, continue.
Which is why I gave him something, and he didn't fail.
Tough grades.
He's a B. Bryce Harper, B, because when you look, I'm sorry, I just read Sosa's numbers for postseason. My bad. I was wondering why that didn't make sense.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I got a lot of B's and bad grades here. Let me go back to Bryce Harper. A lot of red ink on this paper. Let me rewind. For Bryce Harper, looking at his postseason numbers, I knew those numbers didn't make sense. In his 12 at-bats, Bryce Harper gave you 3 runs, 4 hits. His splits were a .333, .529, .750 with a 1.279 OPS. Bryce Harper was one of the pieces of this offense that showed up for some of the 4 games. Did not show up for enough. Now, when you look at his regular season stats, Bryce Harper did finish 11th across the league in extra base hits. He was top 10 in hits, 12th in slugging, 10th in OPS, OBP, was 7th in doubles, was 11th in walks.
Sounds
he did have a lot of. We're getting there.
Hey, we're contemporaries here. We can help each other's grades.
He did have. When you look at his plate discipline and his approach, he was consistent. I'm not grading him on the fact that he just had a home run drought. I'm also going to say that for Bryce Harper, despite all the history and the great season that he had in the first half of the season, I just expected more from him. And I feel like he's a guy that when you look at after the London series and the frustrations, he had opportunities throughout the course of his season, even with 42 doubles, 30 home runs, 76 walks. He had opportunities to really lead this team and step up. And even with the drought, I would have liked to see more from him. And I think that he was so much in his own head that when the team needed him at times most, Bryce Harper was unable to help be that leader that they needed. So it's more to me about Bryce Harper's inability in big moments to lead. You are the face of this team. Playoffs, struggling to win. I think that we needed more from Bryce Harper.
All right, Professor Zulli. We got an A from me. A B from Renee. Where are you on the Bryce Harper grading scale?
It's an A- for me. I thought it was a pretty productive year. I mean, we've laid out
So you
pretty
split us.
pretty significantly the power gap, or the sap and power over the late portions of July and August. However, he was a back-to-back player of the month, the National League Player of the Month in May and June. He hit 30 home runs for the third time in his Phillies career. His 42 doubles were tied for the most over the course of his Phillies career. He had 72 extra base hits. He still picked up 87 RBIs, despite the fact that he did miss a little bit of time throughout the season, and the power really sapped pretty significantly again in the later stages of July. July, he hit 149 and slugged just 358.
Yeah.
The fact that he slugged 358 in the month of July and still finished with a .525 slugging percentage, which was the third best of his Phillies tenure, is pretty impressive to me. It's the fifth consecutive year that he's gone for 145 plus OPS plus. It was a 149 OPS plus. Those that don't know, OPS plus is the weighted scale is 100 is baseline. So he's basically 49% better than the average baseball player this year. He's 149 this year. He was 145 last year. His MVP year, he was 179. So it's 5 consecutive years of 145 OPS or better. He had almost 300 total bases this year, which would be the the second most in his time as a Philly, despite the fact that he had only 2 home runs in the back portion of July and into the early portions of August. He still reached the 30 plateau. I think that without that, he probably is pushing 40 and 100, and you're talking about an MVP caliber type season. Now, Shohei Ohtani would have won it no matter if he was 40 or 30, 35, 40. That's just how good Ohtani's been this year. But Bryce Harper's season as a whole was wildly productive across the board. The OBP, Jamie, as you mentioned, 373 was down from last year, still pretty good. The slugging was better than last year's slugging. More home runs, more RBI, more doubles, more extra base hits. The walk numbers were practically the same. Now, I know he played 15 more games this year than he did last year, but the walk numbers were practically the same. I think across the board, this was a very productive year for Bryce Harper. I go A-.